So what we're going to talk about today is collaboration squared, and beginning with collaboration in its simplest form. The right process will produce the right results. This is the second take of this of this lecture or this session. The last one somehow timed out on me, and so I'm getting a second shot at it. That's not very lean, but hopefully we'll do a better job this time. And it's actually recording. So after the Richardson College for the Environment project, I needed to come back and train my staff on what we had just discovered in relational contracting. And so this was a Friday afternoon. We took a day to learn about integrated project delivery or lean project delivery, and we did a little simulation. And we split our team into two, and we basically had one group use a very traditional top-down approach where the communication channels between subcontractors and general contractors and designers had to be through the formal communication channel. And we had the other team say, hey, you're all in this together. You're free to communicate, plan things. Just go to it and do the best you can and come up with the best building design that you can for the time. And we put on the timer and let everybody go. And as you can guess, the one on the left is the more collaborative, free to communicate team approach, as opposed to the one on the right, which actually looks pretty pathetic, was the traditional approach. And so we didn't buy any kit. We just came up with this game ourselves, and just to see what would happen. And it really demonstrates the value of collaborative design. What we're going to talk about is at the end of this session, we're going to review all of the great things that happened at the Mosaic Center, our WOW project that's going for Living Building Challenge certification, and basically taking into account the triple bottom line as taking care of the planet. Still using lean so contractors make higher margins, and Dennis is really big on providing a great environment for his staff so that they're productive work and his business is successful. So at the end of, actually after the Forestry Center, I might have talked about this logo that we had, but the reason I have it again is, we've talked about putting together a team and the systems that we're going to use to deliver WOW projects. Well, if you notice on our little triangle here, having designers, contractors, building owners work in a spirit of trust and collaboration to create value. So collaboration, we recognize this even before we knew about lean project delivery as being so important for how we're going to deliver better value projects. So you often hear in the industry, really collaborate when you're at Lean Construction Institute. And so we've basically come up with collaboration squared as being so important, and it's one of the three things that we've deemed to be very important for eliminating waste and creating value on projects. So collaborate on what? Well, collaborate on being successful, and for different people that means, it might mean profit. That's for maybe the contractors. For the owner of the facility, they're interested in having productive work environments for their people. And for the energy engineers or the people like me that want to see net zero become the norm, energy performance is key, or the productivity or the performance of how fast we can assemble a building. So I love high performance, cars that get great mileage and still have lots of power. So we need to recognize, and we've talked about this before, that the level of collaboration is totally dependent upon team dynamics. And if you go grab a team that have already formed, stormed, and normed and are getting to performing, their level of collaboration is going to be higher than somebody just getting together for the first time. So we need to recognize that when we hire our teams. Collaboration is not going to happen if we're dispersed and we don't have focused work, so we got to get people in a big room. So the big room is a room big enough to host the whole team that needs to be collaborating in groups of 6 or 8 people to do all of the working in the cluster groups to create value for structures and for mechanical and electrical systems. And we also need a big room for the wall space that we need to display the plans and the pull plans of how we're going to do our work and our progress on the project and the choices that we need for how we're going to evaluate which is the best value. We also need a virtual work environment. I'm working on 2 Living Building Challenge projects from Saskatoon. One's in Edmonton and one's in Kelowna. So for Mosaic Center, we used Basecamp. And so I can hop on this website and follow the thread of conversations and documents and meetings and be up to speed on my own, like without having to phone people and bother other people. That a virtual environment is more than just an FTP site. It's not more than a depository for where you put your drawings. It's how you communicate. You can actually have discussions in this environment. So think of it as Google Hangout is another virtual environment. So Basecamp is one software that I know of, and I'm sure there's others that do a great job. We need to remember to focus or to collaborate on the big value stuff. If we start with the left, the little red or pink dot there represents the cost of design. The blue dot, the cost of construction. The green dot, what our facility operation and maintenance costs are going to be. The business operating costs are the big one. The big one on the right is the work that you do within a healthcare facility or within an office, and it's an annual cost. It's huge. So we always focus on the capital cost and the energy cost. That's what I'm, as a project manager, always am looking at. But the stuff that flows through the facilities that we're building is hugely important. And so we might want to take a look at doing value stream mapping for the people that are working in the space, and that's getting to be big in healthcare. Instead of they have a P3 process where they basically set up test beds, and they practice as to how are they going to give their medications out, and they do a lot of process analysis using value stream mapping to figure out how to do more in less space, or to be more productive at providing healthcare or education. And so value stream mapping, this is a really good little video that makes lean simplified value stream mapping, patient scheduling. So we had a POS pilot plant here in Saskatoon that flows 10 times $500,000 of energy through it. So we basically went from an energy audit to a facility renewal, and in that process, the original project requirements were to add a corridor because they didn't have enough space, and it was going to cost $600,000. And we got to thinking about all the equipment that was laying around, and maybe if they changed the process and the layout of the facility, that maybe they wouldn't have to add that addition. And that company FastCap came to the same conclusion, that if they just changed the way they worked within the space and scrubbed it and straightened it out, the 5 S's, maybe they could make do with less space. And so they actually avoided building a new building. And in this case, through value stream mapping, or 5S'ing the facility, we were able to avoid making a $60,000 addition. No, $600,000 addition. So you might want to, the point being, consider what's happening in the space before you go and build things bigger, because there's sometimes a lot better way to do more with less within the space that you have. Essentialism, there's so many projects that when consultants don't know how to say no. And if you take an essentialist approach that owner, what are the essentials for you to do on this project, and we will add all the added value things as a wish list. And then at least we know we're going to be able to get a design that's going to work for the construction cost. And so that's the idea of essentialism. And as project managers and consultants, we need to learn how to say no and be realistic with what we can actually build. And another thing that we need to collaborate on is we need to focus on the most important task first. We need to test for value creation very often. And so one thing at a time is the idea of focus on what the next things that we need that are a constraint to determining that we have a successful project or that we're going to meet our master schedule. And so let's work on the things that are the next thing that's going to create value for us as a team. And the minimum viable product is, let's test to make sure that that product is what the owner really wants, or what the project requirements are expecting it to be, as opposed to going off in a box and building something that nobody wants. And so how many times, engineers love to design things and model things and go off and draft. Well, how often do they come back and that little box on the left there, is this what you wanted? Why did you waste all that time on that? Let's use ideas out of the lean startup world and test our designs with a minimum design until we actually come to a feasible project. Okay. MVP is opposite to the dream big approach that gets many projects in trouble, and that's why our CFE was $10 million over budget on a $38.5 million job, because everybody was told to dream big and it got too big and you waste a whole bunch of time trying to, redesigning, and also, you're not meeting expectations of the people, and so they're never going to be really happy with their space when you've had to cut it down in size when they've thought they could have something more than you could afford. So the most efficient way is to deliver a minimum viable product to the target cost, and then add all of the nice to haves and it's a way better way of going at it. It's centralist approach, one thing at a time, minimum viable product, get to a feasible project, and then have, with the money left over, then you can start to add those nice to have things. And getting to something else that we need to collaborate on between all the trades is, when we build a better envelope and we spend money on triple glazed windows, it means that we can have smaller mechanical systems and larger zones and less controls. And if we do a good job of orientating the building using passive designs, we can actually get a building that is higher performance at less cost. And so that's one of your vision quest questions, is tunneling through the cost barriers. What does that mean? What about building information modeling? At first, when we started talking about integrated project delivery or lean project delivery, BIM was right up there on even field with them as being, that's what lean was all about. And we're doing lean projects without building information modeling. But what can it do for us for creating value? Well, it helps with collaboration, because you have to be able to lay out mechanical, electrical, and building systems. I've heard that you can actually save a floor in 10 if you do a good job of how you layer your systems within a building and use the right kind of systems. With smaller ductwork saves height in a building. We can also have better coordination, so there's no conflict in the field. And if we do it right and get that collaboration and coordination, it gives us the confidence to go and build things prefab in the shops, where I'm not sure how much percentage more effective it is. Excuse me. So a 3D model helps us incorporate productive prefabrication, and it also allows us, I don't think I have another one, why are we designing and putting all these 2D drawings and then having to send them over the fence to the contractors, and then they come back with shop drawings? So a big part of the BIM world is to think differently and design as though there are the shop drawings, as opposed to designing to tender. And that saves a lot of waste in information flow. The design should be the shop drawing. Okay, we need to collaborate on sustainable behavior. We had a project where it's going to, and a lot of projects, in order to handle the shoulder seasons in a northern climate, you have to add so much more mechanical or electrical systems in order to be able to keep temperature within 22.5 degrees plus or minus 2 degrees for all of the seasons that we have in a northern climate. So, well, how about if we changed our sweater or our shirt, or just had more sustainable expectation as to what the comfort range is? Because science shows that we can have a much broader band on temperature, and it makes a huge difference, as we'll see later, with some numbers as to what the energy cost implications are. Why don't we collaborate with the banks? Our U of W project, we had some budget issues, and we were able to borrow by knocking $50,000 off of our operating costs. We were able to borrow $1 million for a high-performance VRF system, which cost us $600,000. So we ended up fixing a budget gap of $400,000 by borrowing money to be high performance. So that took some collaboration with pro forma for the building.